All right. Tonight, we are blessed again to start our summer series with Brother Ralph Gilmore. And we're especially blessed as well that his wife Joyce is with us. They've been married since June 11th of 1971. So we are glad that they're both here today. They have 4 daughters, Jenny, Jill, Rachel, and Rose. And I don't think, Ralph, you've never actually been here, have you, correct? But I guess a few years back, you were kind of here because if some of you remember, we watched him live stream doing his debate with Dr. Alexander Rosenberg on pain and suffering, or the topic of God and suffering. So that was kind of neat. So even though you haven't been here physically, you were here, and we listened to you for that, and that was a neat event. But Ralph has been a professor at Freed Hardeman in Bible and interdisciplinary studies for about 37 years. He's also the editor of the Freed religious academic journal entitled The Kingdom, and he started that in 2011. And he's been a preacher of the gospel for 49 years. But I was blessed to have Ralph as a teacher whenever I was at Freed. I had him in 2 different classes, Hebrews and Christian Evidences. And Ralph is one of my favorite teachers, one of my favorite people. He's a very genuine person and one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met. So I'm excited to hear him tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him at this time.
I could do that, but this is a challenge because I hadn't seen my belt in a long time. Okay, and there you go. Check, check. MasterCard, Visa, check. Good evening. Man, that was really pitiful. Let's try that again. Good evening. Thank you very much for that. I was wondering if I was speaking English or something. So, Jules, do you have a favorite song? Have you been to church before? Okay, do you have a favorite song? You just let it. I mean, you didn't lead it, but I mean, we just sang it. That was your favorite song? Nathan, what's your favorite song? Do they know that here?
We've sung it.
The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide. It trembles at his voice, trembles at his voice. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. There you go. Well, yeah, I sung it some. All right, so let me say that David and Heather Salisbury, nice to meet you guys. Our paths have kind of zigzagged in the past, but we hadn't really been with each other much. It's a pleasure to meet you and your children. I'm not going to try. Okay, but one of them is Abby, and one of them is Will, and the other's Grace. No, what's the other one? Darby. There you go. Hey, Darby. Sorry, I messed that one up. Okay, and David and Nathan and Jules I've known, of course, for a long time because of class. And I love them both, although, they were y'all dating at the time you had classes with me? I can't remember. And I didn't know who Jules was because I called you by your Julianne, right? Okay, because I didn't know who Jules was, and so now I know. And so Larry and Sharon Bundy, good to see you. Took their daughters to New Zealand a couple of times, and I guess it was kind of a long way to have a relationship with Lisa, and Kevin over there, but now that they've moved back over here, I guess you'll forgive me. But anyway, they went with me to New Zealand, and those are wonderful girls, love them. Brian and Casey, Now, Casey, what was your maiden name? Yeah, I don't know you by Maddox, but it's good to see you again. I knew who you were. And let's see, Neil Mathis, we've been with him the last couple of nights. Isn't it strange that we came here from there? And Neil was here for several years and then went to Tompkinsville. And so he still loves you, and it was good to be with them and Ashley. John Settles, you were with us at Freed-Hardeman for about 3 years, and it's good to see you tonight. And my wife, Joyce, is sitting right back here. She's my beautiful wife. I left my ugly wife at home. Okay, but we've been married for by the way, we've been married for 47 years. And let's see, and I've taught 38 years at Freed-Hardeman now. I need to update that bio, I guess. One more year, and that's it for me. And then I'm going to retire and do I don't know what. But anyway, it'll be a little different. Okay, so I listened to you, Brother David, and this is not in widescreen because I usually do widescreen. And so hopefully this looks good to you because I put it in exactly, yep, that does look right. Yep, looks good. Okay, so here we are. Is that what I'm speaking about tonight? Oh, yeah, the year of the Lord's favor. All right, so I love this passage. And it's we're going to tie together Isaiah 61 and Luke 4, but I'm not going to get to Luke 4 first. Matter of fact, we're going to go to Isaiah 61 first. Now, the book of Isaiah is pretty cool because it's known as the fifth gospel, also known as the Little Bible. And the reason why, by the way, thank you for the food tonight. I really enjoyed that a lot. The reason why it's known as the Little Bible, see, Brock and Seth, right? All right, so the reason it's known as the Little Bible is this. There are 66 chapters in the book of Isaiah. How many books in the Bible are there? All right, there you go, boom. All right, now, the first 39 of the books of the Old Testament of Isaiah are pretty rough. God is condemning all the surrounding, nations around him, all that kind of stuff, and it makes you feel kind of, oh man, he's going to condemn another nation. And so it's pretty rough. It's kind of like God in the Old Testament seems to be a little rougher. We don't learn too much about grace and truth through Jesus to the New Testament. So there's 27 chapters, therefore, that begin the Messianic age, beginning in Isaiah chapter 60. And therefore, beginning in Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40 through 66, therefore, will give you 27 chapters, and that tells you about the coming of the Messiah, the Messianic age. And therefore, Isaiah is a cool book. Now, Isaiah 61, as we zoom in on that now, what we see is that Isaiah 61 is in that part of the Bible that where we start learning about Jesus and what he's going to do. And David, thank you for the series from, is it John 12:21? Okay, about we would see Jesus. All right, so we're right on cue here. So David, read that, please. Can you read that far? Oh, yeah.
The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all the mourning.
By the way, I'm so cheating tonight. You know why I'm cheating? Because my main points come directly from the text, and I have put them in boldface for you. All right, so here you go. Here are the main points. Number 1, to bring good news to the poor. Number 2, to proclaim liberty to the captives. Number 3, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. But we're not through yet. Go ahead, David.
To grant to those who mourn in Zion, to give them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a faint spirit, that they may be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified.
Yeah, I used to wonder what in the world was that song Beauty for Ashes that my dad loved. I think it was in Christian Hymns number 2. It was song number 100. And my dad, I was a kid. I don't know why I remember that. I can't remember anything that's important. But anyway, it was song number 100, and my dad would sing that. And it was about beauty for ashes, God had, okay, I don't know. Are you old enough to remember that song, anybody? Anybody remember that song, Beauty for Ashes? I didn't know what in the world that song was about. But that song is about this. Whenever a Jew was in mourning, he would take ashes, he would put on sackcloth. If you know what tobacco, if you know what sacks feel like that you would put feed in, at the feed store, real rough and burlappy and stuff. Okay, they would put on that stuff because it was uncomfortable and scratchy. And then they would take ashes and put it all over their arms and their face and their legs. And then they would be in mourning. That would indicate, therefore, that they are definitely in mourning. That's what King David did whenever he lost his first child with Bathsheba. He did that. He took off his good clothes and he put the ashes all over himself. All right, so that's the beauty for ashes. The ashes that you're mourning about, God's going to turn them to beauty. He's going to turn them to beauty, and it's going to be through Jesus Christ. And the message is for those of us tonight from another Henderson than the one that I know. By the way, your Henderson is a lot bigger than my Henderson. You know, Henderson, Tennessee is not very big. All right, so the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a faint spirit, that they may be called oaks of righteousness. That's a big deal to be called oaks of righteousness. They have a place where I have preached before in Memphis called 100 Oaks. Except they built a new church building there, and there's not even an oak on the entire spot. And I told them it was false advertising. All right, but the oaks of righteousness would be the spot that, you know, you are strong like an oak. And you are, because of the righteousness of God, you are strong. It is a planning of the Lord that it might be glorified. So let's look at them one at a time tonight, because I don't want to look at them all at the same time. All right, so to bring good news to the poor, he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted. You might have heard in the New Testament that bind where it is bound and loose where it is loose. And the idea is the binding and loosing is with Peter in Matthew chapter 16. Whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven. What you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And it said of the other apostles in Matthew 18 about the binding and loosing. So it means then that somebody is a prisoner and they have been loosed, you know. Therefore, the idea is you are bound. Not handcuffs, but ropes. You are bound, and now you're going to be loosed. Now, the idea here is those people who are bound in prison are going to be freed. So let's talk about that some. I went through my slides and found some poor stuff because, you know, people around here think that they're poor. And there might be some poor people in this part of Kentucky. Are y'all technically West Kentucky? All right, this might be some poor people in West Kentucky, but they're pretty rare. I mean, there are some homeless people all over the world. I know that. And there's some in downtown Jackson, Tennessee, where I'm from. I know that. But for most of us, we've not seen that kind of poverty before. So I thought I'd just throw together a couple of slides for you. Here's Market Day in Nigeria. And the people, they are very poor. They go and exchange goods. They don't need money very much because they exchange goods. You know, they will make a dress and they'll exchange it for some fruit of some kind or another. And Market Day is a big deal. It is a big deal for the poor people there in Nigeria. And here's another picture that I made when we were in Arusha, Tanzania. And here are ladies making Sunday lunch for the campaigners in Arusha, Tanzania, which is not too far from 2 or 3 hour drive from Mount Kilimanjaro. And so what we would do there, every day, beans and rice. Someday you'll have rice and beans with some mystery meat nobody asked. Okay, you just kind of eat it as beans and rice. Have y'all done that before, beans and rice and beans? Well, they make it the old-fashioned way. I mean, they make it the old-fashioned way. They are making sure that they get the little husk out of the rice and stuff here, and then they're taking the beans and they're boiling over a fire that they have made with their own hands and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's kind of poor. El Cerrillo, Mexico, where I've been before, that means in Spanish the skunk. And it's a migrant village. At this migrant village, we're door knocking, except their doors, many of them are made out of cardboard if they have a door. I mean, it'd be like a refrigerator box that your refrigerator came in, and then you take it apart, and you kind of tie two pieces together, maybe with string, and that becomes your front door. And this woman is hurt, and then in Spanish, on her little box of a cabin there, her bathroom is a little hole that she dug in the back. For a bathroom, she's got a little bitty stove that she cooks on, and she says, gracias, yes. And I'm thinking, yes, do you see the houses that we live in around here? I mean, even the place where we are staying, and I'm thankful that we are staying there, there's no $10 that worth. Do you know, in comparison, these people are truly poor, and yet I have seen them taking a sickle in Africa on at least 3 or 4 nations. There's no lawnmowers, and so they're just cutting the yard with a sickle, just singing in Swahili at the top of their lungs, some song of praise. And you're thinking, wow, they're poor, aren't they? Except in some ways they're rich, because we got so much stuff. We got 1,000 in our pockets, most of us. $1,000 worth of phones right here in our pockets. Do you know how many people that could feed at 70 cents an hour in a migrant village in Mexico? Do you know how much that could do it? I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a phone. I am saying that we should appreciate the level we are able to live at. We should appreciate that because there's so many in the people who are not able to do that. And so Jesus came to set free those poor people. Now, Jesus also came, number 2, to proclaim liberty to the captives. Oh, yeah, those are in prison. They're not, they are guilty, does not matter. Many of them are. I would say most of them are. There are some innocent people in prison. There's no doubt about it. But nonetheless, you proclaim captives, here's what I think of. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. But boy, we ain't redeemed as long as we're in jail. Because here's the side of a slave ramp that I have seen 4 or 5 times in Nassau, in the Bahamas, where slaves were unloaded and sold. Now, it's difficult to find the ramp anymore. They built this museum on going to the Bahamas, that concrete ramp that was poured from the place where the slave ships landed to the place where the slaves are going to be sold, right there in Nassau. And they would usually go there first. Now you can go to the Pompeii Museum of Slavery and Emancipation there, and this is what it looks like today. But I don't want you to forget that ramp that came from me, because they definitely slaves in every way that you could think of. Oh, and unless you should say that we in America are, without fault, well, there's another one of these in Charleston, South Carolina. Because often they would stop first in the Bahamas, and then with the rest of the slaves, they would bring them to Charleston, South Carolina. So in Charleston, South Carolina, there's this museum that some of you might have been to before, you might have seen before. And there also was a concrete ramp coming up from where the ships landed that would go to the area where these people are sold. Now, I'm not going to do a dramatic presentation here, except use your minds, your imagination of what it would be like to go up a ramp and to have people to feel of your legs to see how strong that you are. Or maybe to put their nasty fingers in your mouth to see how healthy you are by looking at your teeth as though you were a horse. Or if you're a woman, to try to make judgments about how fertile you were because you were walking up that ramp, and how many children could you bring the person who buys you as though you were property. And now, if you understand that sort of slavery, you will definitely appreciate freedom. There were a lot of Negro spirituals that we used to sing in the chorus at Freed Hardman when Joyce and I were there. And one reason why there's so many motifs or common ideas of the Negro spirituals is the fact all God's children in God's shoes. Why? Because most of the slaves didn't have shoes. Or then those songs about the various songs about deliverance that would be associated with Jesus Christ our Lord, as we see in Isaiah. Here's the entire village of slaves in 1865. Which is kind of like freeing a prisoner, and they are connected by, because 70% of the people who are paroled from prison go back to prison. Now, why do they go back to prison? You think once you're out of prison, you'd never want to go back there again. Well, you become used to somebody else providing your meals for you. You don't have to worry about your schedule. Somebody else figures out your schedule for you. You have become institutionalized, and therefore a lot of these people didn't even know how to celebrate their freedom because they had no skills. Let me tell you what a man told me in Jackson, Tennessee, because he's one of the elders at the Campbell Street Church of Christ. Whenever they let a guy out of a halfway house in Jackson, Tennessee, which is a place where you would go after being let out of prison, he is given $25 and a burner cell phone. $25 and a burner cell. Now, let's see how you're going to make that in Henderson, Kentucky with $25 and a burner cell. How are you going to make that in Jackson, Tennessee with $25 and a burner cell? You got so many minutes on this call, and then all of a sudden, the phone's not worth anything anymore, and you got $25. But if you are a convicted felon, who wants to hire you? You don't have a place to go. And so, I put this picture. Why? Well, because for 77 days in Louisiana, and for 2 years and a few days in another state, in Tennessee and Memphis, that was our daughter. She was on drugs and alcohol for 7 years. She was dating a guy who was her pusher. He got her involved in a lot of things. And for over 2 years, she was this person. We're thankful that there was, among the other friends that she had, there was a guy who was a counselor in Memphis, Tennessee, who would see her a couple of days a week and to talk to her and to tell her that she was worth something. You are worth something. Just because you're on drugs, let me tell you, if you start looking up and down the rows of the prisoners, there's going to be 85 to 90% of them that are there somehow or other because of drugs. Now they rob because of drugs, or they were a pusher because of drugs, or they were a prostitute because of drugs, or whatever it was. They did that because of drugs. And so, whenever this passage is talking about Jesus, who's going to come and set the captives free, it means a lot more if you know somebody in your family has actually been in prison. And you have dreaded that call where she would call you and she'd be crying, and there's nothing you could do about it except we already put you through lawyers. We have done everything. You've got 3 younger sons. Now we're just going to have to turn you loose and let go and let God. And so that's what we did. And you know this, then you will know what freedom stands. We picked her up. She kept looking around nervously like this. around as though I said to her, I used her name and I for a while. If you knew this kind of stuff, if you know this kind of brokenness, then Jesus woman had several